add a lot of used coffee grounds to our garden every year, and that includes adding them directly to our garden beds as mulch. Our primary motivation in doing so is to improve soil fertility, but we've always hoped that the grounds were also helping to deter slugs. I say hoped because we weren't very confident the grounds were having much of an impact. Despite all the grounds, we've still had our fair share of problems with slugs. So I thought I'd try a little experiment to see if slugs, when given a choice, would avoid garden soil mulched with coffee grounds and instead travel over plain garden soil. First I had to find some slugs. I'm happy to say that we haven't had too much of a slug problem so far this year, and the slugs weren't all that easy to find. Perhaps the record cold winter reduced their numbers. That said, I was able to find 4 slugs under some old tree cuttings in the alley. Next I set up the test environment. I added a layer of garden soil on the bottom of a bin and topped off one side with damp used coffee grounds. I then added some leaves to the far end of each side and covered them with damp grocery bags. Slugs like cool damp cover, so I thought they'd head for the shelter of the damp grocery bags. The only question remaining was would they choose to travel over the coffee grounds or the plain soil. I decided to run 6 consecutive tests of equal duration and record how many trips were taken over the plain garden soil and how many over the used coffee grounds. To get things started, I placed 4 of the slugs in the middle of the bin and let the camera roll. 3 of the slugs were soon on their way over the plain garden soil, and the 4th slug eventually followed suit. So that's 4 trips over the soil and 0 over the grounds. To start test 2, I returned the slugs to the center, and they were off. This time 1 of the slugs traveled over the coffee grounds, while the other 3 went over the plain garden soil. That's 7 trips over the soil and 1 over the grounds. In the 3rd test, 3 of the slugs moved over the plain garden soil, while 1 just stayed put in the middle of the bin. You can see that the stationary slug started the test in the coffee grounds. I also noticed that it had a large clump of ground stuck to its underbelly. Thinking this may account for the slug not moving, I brushed the grounds off the slug before the next test. That brings us to 10 trips over soil and 1 over grounds. In test 4, 3 of the slugs moved over the garden soil and 1 stayed in the middle, bringing the count to 13 trips over the soil and 1 over grounds. After test 4, I was unable to locate 1 of the slugs, so I continued with the remaining 3. In test 5, all 3 traveled over the soil, bringing the count to 16 trips over soil and 1 over grounds. Finally, in test 6, the 3 remaining slugs once again moved over the garden soil, bringing the final count to 19 trips over soil and just 1 over coffee grounds. So it looks like used coffee grounds do deter slugs. At the very least, slugs prefer to move over garden soil that isn't mulched with coffee grounds. But the question remains as to whether they'll still cross grounds to get to food and shelter if they don't have another option. My guess is that they will, but I'll save that for another test and another video. Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, remember, you can change the world 1 yard at a time.